I wanted to share with you just to remind you all, at a deeper level that there is no one earth, there is no one reality. And what I mean by this is that, there are so many parallel versions of earth, and we're shifting into them, constantly, like millions, billions, every single minute we're shifting into all these different worlds depending on our frequency, our connection points. And it's kind of funny because especially recently I've been just philosophizing in my own head and being kind of marveled at just the complexity of life, and how the internet and communications has bridged so many parallel worlds together to have us believe that there's this one world. And what I mean by this is that, what's interesting is someone can be saying things, on the internet, talking about, facts that are happening on their planet, their earth, sharing that over. And, here we are in a different earth watching this and thinking it's happening on our earth. And I feel it's important to have a chat about this with you. And I know it's a bit quantum. Oh my God, right, Lindsay? And just to remember that there are many different realms, many different timelines, many different versions of Earth, and we do interconnect. And so it's always important to look around you and what's going on in your world versus being, and don't get me wrong, it's not about, it's not about like bypassing or ignoring what's going on in the other Earths, because all of the Earths are making up the collective Earth grid. And of course, the more Earths that activate into higher frequency, then of course impact all the other Earths. So I kind of wanted to chat to you about how, everything is such a mirror in the universe. We all know that there's a collective humanity grid. And if we're plugged into the collective grid and there's a lot of crap going on in the world, we can pick up on fear and things. And this is what we spoke about in the very first Frequency Thrive session, yeah? And I was sharing with you how it's important for you to be, not connecting to the collective grid while all this was happening, to really be just in your own column of ascension, which is why all of this has been around, connecting your heart, your connection to your galaxy, the earth, your heart, and your galaxy, so you're in your own unique signature soul column, right? And now, right, and so that therefore you weren't picking up on other people's stuff, so you could do your own work and actually expand rapidly inside of this portal. And now I kind of wish to talk to you about the fact that the same thing is happening with Earths. Just like there's a collective grid, for humanity, and every time one person upgrades, it actually upgrades the collective. And of course, when too many people in the collective grid lower their vibration and go into fear, then if you're plugged into it, you're going to be impacted. The same thing's happening with all the Earths. And so now see it as this collective grid of Earths, and there are all these different versions. And like you've come across information we all have, that on certain Earths, like there's children being taken, and there's horrible things going on, really horrible things going on. There's people starving, there's so much going on. And yes, it's intertwined, meaning you can travel and see certain things. But here's the funny part, right? Depending on what timeline we are vibrating on will determine what frequency reality of the Earths we're shifting into, which means that you could actually travel to a third world country and you could not see much of anything going on that's really quite horrendous, or you could travel there and be exposed to having things stolen from you and seeing all sorts of things happen. Does this resonate? Give me a yes if you get where I'm going with this, and of course give me a no if this is too much because you haven't done the frequency shift event yet. Yes, 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 yes. This is so, yep, yep, yep. Cool. Awesome. Totally. Yep. Awesome. And so I share this with you today because it is important to also observe our reality, from this remembering that there's so many different earths. And yet, when we're connected to certain people and certain like information, that's the bridge to that parallel world, if that makes sense. And so this is what it really means to be conscious of the environment we choose to place ourselves into. I still remember over 20 years ago when I first really embraced my spiritual personal growth journey, beyond just books and, working and doing courses and working with coaches and healers and all of that stuff. One of my first mentors told me to stop watching the news. One of the first bits of information I got was stop watching the news. And because the news is connecting how many parallel realities, honestly, like think about it. How many parallel realities are being connected by the news? Right? Yep, never watch it. Yep, yep, yep. And, not that this was explained to me like this back then. It was just like now sort of going, isn't that interesting? When I left the news grid and I created a bubble, I created a world within all the worlds, a Gaby world, and I'm not saying I didn't go through any, trials and tribulations, but I definitely wasn't tapping into the fear, the true, like, enormous fear inside of the collective grid, which can happen. And so I remind you of this because even when things are happening on our, like, world, that aren't awesome, please know that there are higher timelines, there are other timelines, there are parallel versions. And, this is like, to me the quantum mastery element of it, to detach, to center, to calibrate frequency, and then to choose to be placed into the highest timeline that's available right now around any particular issue, any particular situation. Personally, for myself, there's been some stuff going on with a couple of people in my life, and there was like, we're on totally different timelines, and there was a little bit of like turbulence in communication because it's like, I'm talking Chinese and they're talking Spanish, right? Because sometimes when we're in these totally different realities and we're talking, it's like, right? And so what I've been doing recently, and I felt to share this with you, is just sitting with and allowing myself to remember that there's many different realities, many different worlds, and then having a look at, where potentially I was being like, where potentially I was trying to, place my perspective, my truth as the infinite truth. And this morning, even, like, I woke up pretty early. This morning I was sitting there, it's probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like tuning into, okay, like, I now choose to surrender into receiving a meeting point with these people that is our highest timeline to connect upon, that bridges my timeline and their timeline in the highest way possible without me projecting what I believe that to be, without trying to control the outcome, and simply surrendering to that and requesting, and our request to receive guidance, receive upgrades, receive healing around shifting into the highest timeline that's available for this particular conflict that's going on right now. Because if I just stay here and I'm looking at this reality, I'm only exposed to a few different realities. When I open up and I'm like, okay, you know what? I know there are realities and timelines beyond what I can possibly perceive right now from where I'm at. And if I'm wishing to have a higher resolution, then I simply surrender and trust that there's one that we can meet upon. And I ask that all of the control and any of the ego and any of the righteousness and any of the frequencies that are currently in my field you know, simply release out of my field so I can come back to center to shift into this timeline, to shift into this crossroad, for me to meet these people who are currently in a parallel reality, you know, in a connection point that doesn't feel like this. Is this helpful? Give me a, this is so helpful, awesome, haha, where am I trying to control other people's timelines, right? Yeah, beautiful, honoring, heck yes, awesome, this is very helpful, and wow, and so helpful, my world, yes, awesome. And so I invite you, you know, to explore this concept of there is a whole grid of Earths. Which one are you connecting to? And then realizing that we can actually connect to certain realms and certain frequencies. We don't need to connect to other realms and other frequencies. And to remember that, you know, there is so much information about, there's so many like conspiracy theory type of informations about, I mean, you could go down that rabbit hole and get lost. I'm sure some of you have done this. And it's like, whoa, you know, yet remembering, you know, these are different, you know, these are different also parallel realities. And yes, that doesn't mean you can't cross into them. And so we think it's one because we're like, I just went here and witnessed this, and then I just went here and witnessed this, and we're like, oh, it must be one, right? You're like, yeah, yet really it's a quantum soup. LOL, Lindsay's like, you know, and as quantum as that is, you know, just I believe this gives us choice. I believe that this gives us the capacity to be able to observe, to be able to come back, to be able to witness the, you know, the kaleidoscope of all the different things going on. And then this also leads me to this part, you know, because if you can witness, you have choice. If you're in it, if you're stuck in the illusion of it, then there's very limited choice, because it's literally, I need to react to this situation. Does this make sense? And so from here, we're like, okay, show me what else, versus this is it. You know, show me what else. Show me what's higher than this. Like receiving, yeah, from your higher self, from your soul family. So powerful, because to me, this is like such a powerful way to be a conscious co-creator, remembering the whole universe is inside of us. Yeah. And number two, this takes me to share that Robin says, I've jumped into a new timeline where big time justice has miraculously taken place on top of all the blessings. Awesome, Robin, beautiful. Alex, can you give an example of meeting someone in their reality without lowering yours? Yep, I will, and I'll make a yes, and I will share this quickly first too. I'll come back to that. And so from this point, I also wanted to share with you that the evolution that's taking place right now on our planet, the 5D shift, this is a full transformation. This is an unlocking of a creation of new, you know, new Earths in the grid. Yeah. And of course, the more new Earths, the more versions of new Earth that are created within the collective Earth grid, then it raises the collective frequency of the whole grid up. Yeah. So this is how we're shifting. Doesn't mean that there won't be realities, you know, where there's still denser frequency, scarcity, poverty. Yeah. It's just that, you know, as a collective, right? It's just that the more this is activated, the more the higher new Earth worlds are created and activated, and the connection points get less and less. We just won't have connection to it. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know is going on all the different parallel worlds. Like so much, you know, even if we have access to the news, which, let's face it, is not going to be the most precise method of communication. But even if we've got access to other people speaking the truth about what's happening in some of the worlds, there's still so much, right? Because there's infinite worlds. And so what this means, though, is as we evolve, as we ascend, our frequency shifts us into higher frequency worlds, which means we're not connected. We could even go to a place and just not see, not experience the stuff that somebody else saw and experienced from their frequency, from their perspective. And it's actually not even the same country on the same, well, it's not the same world. That country that we're visiting is on a different world than that person that went to that world. Yeah. Stay with me. And so what what it means to be shifting into this 5D playground is, please know there's already a few souls that are in the fifth dimensional world. More and more souls are now anchoring more and more of this, yeah, and creating bridges and, you know, and gateways and whatnot to this. And so that means that, you know, some of us will be already anchored into the fourth dimension, completely not at all linked to 3D anymore, which, you know, to shift out of 3D but still be physical means that we're no longer connected to the matrix or the slave grid. We're no longer influenced by society and feel like we need to be anything but ourselves to belong, to fit in, to be enough, to be loved, to survive, to thrive, to all of it, right? Like at the core fundamentals, that's what it means to shift out of 3D into like that 4D bridge where we get to choose the timelines. And then, of course, we continue, you know, shifting, accessing, activating our channel more, going within more, becoming greater co-creators, you know, and shifting into 5D, which is a very aligned life. It is a co-created life, you know, co-creating completely with our soul and co-creating completely, you know, to a point where we don't even need our tool, the mind, anymore, because we're co-creating so beautifully with our soul. Is this a beautiful way to look at it? Yeah, so some of you will be shifting and other people that you know of will still be in the other parallel realities, but because you know them, you're actually like crossing realities. And we've already experienced this, right? How many times have you come across someone, you know, where their view of life, their vantage point of reality is completely different to yours. And you know there's no point in even saying anything because, you know, they really believe in all this kind of stuff. Their reality and their connection points to their earths, what they're experiencing is very different to you. This is continuing. Yeah. Yep, I know them, so beautiful. That really is how I feel. Like I get to sit back, calmly look at all the timelines and I'm going to play on, yep, beautiful, yep. So what do we do with the stuff that comes up in our field awareness? How do we know if it's ours to deal with, address? Let's go into coaching with this, cool? So Alex and Lindsay, I'm going to take you off mute and I'm going to answer your questions in coaching. I wanted to give you this transmission to open up a really beautiful coaching conversation container with you all today. Cool, sweet, awesome. And so from this place, before we go into me unmuting Alex and unmuting Lindsay and anybody else after this, my brain is going, I love this. Before we, I just wished you to please simply receive this. There's nothing else to do but receive this that I'm going to do, okay? Taking a nice deep breath into your heart, breathe out. Placing the divine white light from the angelic realm into the field, into their field, calibrating and clearing. Utilizing the frequency templating of the truth template, allowing this to clear, unlock, and shift, expand their ability to see the whole truth, to see the whole playground at the capacity that is available to them right now. elementals, clearing, restoring, rebooting. Beautiful. Hello. So I was simply asked to do some additional clearing and expansion work for you to support with shifting out some of the little frequencies that were still hanging around, still like, just that beautiful clear out, just a nice clearing and healing into your field. And this is now inside your field doing its work. Beautiful. Felt that in my nervous system, says Lindsay. Thank you. You're welcome. Awesome. So, yeah, enjoy this as it continues to work inside your field right